Good Shabbos. You know the story of King Solomon and the most famous case of the two mothers who came to him with a baby. This is the story we're going to read the Shabbos, and it's quite rare. We read it once in 10 years as an average. We read it 3 years ago, then before that, 20 years before that, and the next time, 17 years from now. Now, this is obviously the most famous story about King Solomon, the most famous court case. And the details of the case are as follows. These two women come. They're obviously women of the night, so therefore they have no men in their life. And one of them says, this is the story, I was sleeping. And the other woman here was sleeping with her baby. She rolled over, she smothered her baby. What she did was she woke up, she exchanged babies, she took mine, she put her dead baby next to me. When I woke up to feed my baby, I see it's dead, but I see it's not my baby. So she took my baby. The other one says, no. This is my child. My child is a living child. Her child is the dead child. And the first one responds, no, your child is the dead child. My child is the living child. So King Solomon says, bring me a sword. And they bring the sword to Solomon, and Solomon says, you say your child is alive, and the other one's child is dead. And you say the other one child is dead, and your child is alive. Correct? Yes. All right, we're going to cut the baby in half. So the real mother says, no. Don't cut the baby in half. Give the baby to the other mother. At least he will live. And the other mother says, no. Let's cut her in half. Here are the questions on the story. How did Solomon have the audacity to rule, to bring a knife, to bring a sword, that might have actually happened? If the mothers would have agreed, then that's what he would have to done. If they both wouldn't have agreed, then you have to do the rule of the king. This is only when one said yes and one said no was he able to figure out the true mother, and he therefore didn't go ahead with what could be a terrible decree. Second question is, once the king, the first mother says, no, let her have the baby, what does she say? She doesn't say, great, yes, I'm going to have the baby. She says, no, cut the baby in half. If that's what she wants, the living baby, why should she cut the baby in half? The Malbim explains the story as follows, brilliantly. What King Solomon saw is that the one woman, the one who was not the real mother, was jealous of the other woman. And it was a jealousy that the Mishnah tells us that takes a person out of this world. By having this jealousy of the other woman, you have two kids. You give one a lolly, you give another one a lolly, they're happy. You give one a lolly and give the other one two lollies, the first one's very unhappy. How do you fix the case? Either you give him a second one, or just as good, take away the second one from his friend or brother. And he's also happy, because they're equal and they're the same. So, a jealous person, and this is the ugliness of jealousy, will be happy if the other person loses out. If the other person doesn't get what he wanted, he'll also be happy. Now, to be true, this can work actually in another way. There could be positive jealousy. The Torah tells us that Rachel Imenu was jealous of her sister. Her sister had many children and she had no children. And she tells her husband, the Torah tells us, Rachel was jealous of her sister. Why does the Torah tell us that? It's quite natural for a woman to want to have a baby. Why couldn't they just say Rachel wanted to have children and she was barren? The reason the Torah is telling us this, that her jealousy was a positive jealousy. Why? She says, what is it that my sister is doing that gives her the merit to have these children? And so maybe I could copy that. I could follow that. I could do what she's doing. In a remarkable letter, a young man writes to the Rebbe that he's studying in a yeshiva, and he feels a sense of jealousy of other students who are doing better than him. And the Rebbe tells him that actually it's a positive feeling. Why? Because the jealousy you have of the other person should spur you on. She says, okay, why is he doing better? Is he studying more? Is he putting more time and effort into it? Then that's what you should do. So when you see someone's success, you have two choices. Either you look at their success as something that diminishes you, or as it's something that spurs you on. That's when you know if it's a positive or negative jealousy. This explains, by the way, the Talmud tells us an interesting perspective on anti-Semitism. The Talmud tells us that anti-Semitism is because the non-Jews sometimes feel a ditch in their heart. They have a ditch from the success of the Jew. And so the way to deal with that, how do I not feel that I'm lacking, that I'm insufficient, that I'm not who I should be? One way would be by mimicking, by doing what the Jew is doing. The other way is to eradicate the Jew. Then I don't have to worry anymore. He doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. That's the two ways. So, for example, the South Koreans have decided they were jealous of the success of the Jews. 22% of Nobel Prize winners are Jews, whilst we're only 0.5% of the world population. So what did they decide in South Korea? What's the success of the Jews? The Talmud. We're going to translate the Talmud into Korean, and we're going to study the Talmud. There are more people studying Talmud in Korea than in Israel. Why? Because this is a healthy jealousy. But then you have the situation today that we're dealing with in Gaza, for example, and in Israel in general. There's the jealousy, that the way they deal with the jealousy is not by saying we want to make ourselves great, but the only way is by destroying us. Always said, our issue with the Arabs around there is not that we want something and they want something. When we want something and they want something, you could come to a compromise. What they want is that we shouldn't be, that we shouldn't have. There's no compromise to that. Like Golda Meir says, we want to live and they want us dead. And we're not going 50-50 on that, okay? We can't do that. Or as I think she also said, we will have peace with the Arabs when they love their children more than they hate us. When they love their children more than they hate us. Jealousy brings such a ugliness to a person, can bring such an ugliness to a person, that they hate the other more than they love themselves, because they feel so diminished by the other that all they want is to destroy the other. So this is what King Solomon sees in the story. King Solomon sees one mother saying, no, I want my child to live. And the other mother doesn't want the child. She doesn't want the other to have the child. Therefore, when the true mother says, you have the child, the other one says, no, let's cut him in half. Why? She doesn't want to bother raising someone else's children. All she wanted is their real mother shouldn't have it. And Solomon saw that. He had the wisdom. He was given a blessing by God to have the wisdom to understand human nature and human reality. And because of that wisdom that he had, he was able to discern this ugliness, this terrible jealousy that this woman had. And that's why he was able to, he knew that from that argument. And that's why one said, my child is alive, your child is dead. And the other one said, no, your child is dead, my child is alive. What you want, what's most important to you, you say first. So the living mother, the real mother says, my child is alive. That's her first thing. That's the most important thing to her. The other one said, your child is dead. That was the most important thing to her. And that's how King Solomon was able to have the wisdom of understanding human nature. And therefore he says, bring me the sword, because he wouldn't do anything with the sword. Obviously, he knew where this was going. She had laid herself bare. She showed her hand that her jealousy was only that the other person shouldn't have. And therefore, he was able to make that ruling. And what this teaches us in life in general, and in Israel in particular, in life in general, there can be two ways. I remember they used to say this 30 years ago. I don't know if it's still true today, that Americans, when they see another person's success, they say, okay, how was he successful? Let me copy him. Let me find the ways and means that he was successful, and I will do the same. And here, there were people who more like tall poppy syndrome. How am I going to cut the other guy down so he is not as successful? Makes me feel better if the other person isn't as successful. That is ugly. Having the kind of sense of that the other person is there to the other person's success is there to spur me on, that's a positive thing. That's a positive jealousy. Therefore, it says spiritually, there's times that jealousy is actually healthy. In matters of the spirit, it's a good thing. Having the opposite, where the jealousy is something that's ugly, where you don't want the other person to have, that's a jealousy that has to go. Just to conclude with a cute little anecdote, or kind of a story or an example, there were two shops, two businesses in the same community, and they were constantly in competition. One of the businesses hired this young CEO, and he came up with new ideas of how to lead the business forward, and he was extremely successful. And they went from 50-50 to 60-40 to 70 to 80 to 90% success. At the point it was 90-10, where they were getting 90% of the market share, he went to the shareholders, the main shareholder, and he says, listen, I think now's the time. They're very weak. They're laying off staff. Now is the time to buy them out. It'll be the cheapest time possible. So, okay, great idea. And he doesn't do anything with it. They moved 95%. He goes to them and says, hey, we should really buy them out. This is the time. He says, I own both businesses. And the idea was for me to spur people on. This competition is actually something positive, because when you see someone has something that you want to have, it could spur you on to do better. That's what I wanted to achieve. That's positive, healthy jealousy. When we see someone's success, someone achieving, and because of that we spur ourselves on, then we know it's coming from a good place. If we see someone's positive success and good fortune, and all we wish is that they shouldn't have that, and that would make us happy, that is absolute ugliness. My friends, that's the ugliness we're seeing in the Middle East. They don't want us there. The only thing that makes them happy is if we're not there. Not that they want to succeed. They want us not to be there. And we have to realize that, and therefore we have to do whatever we can to secure ourselves. Good Shabbos.